chief. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the point where we have enough evidence with this operation that continues to go on in the Gulf, with the financial transactions that have taken place, with the acquiring of companies like Boots and Coots by Halliburton, which is being utilized in the Gulf to drill oil relief wells. All of this stuff going on right now, I think it's fairly obvious for anybody who's been paying attention that this is an operation. This is something that they did, and they did it on purpose. And if you're a new listener, you haven't heard anything about this before, this is going to sound insane to be talking about this. I highly encourage you to go to the website governamerica.com, and right above the picture of the burning oil rig that's on the main page right now, you can click on Operation Gulf Grease, and that will give a background, just the basic information about how these financial transactions have taken place. Operation Gulf Grease on the website right now, and it'll take you over to newswithviews.com where the article appears. But now we have this situation where this boat captain, supposedly despondent over the spill, they say he's committing suicide. Now this comes again from the LA Times. They reported just 3 days ago. They say William Allen Kruse, age 55, a charter boat captain recently hired by BP as a vessel of opportunity out of Gulf Shores, Alabama, died Wednesday morning before 7:30 a.m. of a gunshot wound to the head, likely self-inflicted. Now keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that we've told you folks about is the fact that the oil rig workers were forced to sign statements saying that they had no personal or first-hand knowledge of the incidents regarding the explosion. They were not allowed to phone family. They were not allowed to talk to friends, relatives, without signing these statements. They were not allowed to go home without signing these statements. Kruse, who lived with his family in nearby Foley, Alabama, reported to work on Wednesday morning, as usual, at the Gulf Shores Marina on Fort Morgan Road in Gulf Shores, Vincent said. He met up with his two deckhands at his boat, the Rookie. One of the deckhands later told Vincent that Kruse seemed his usual self. He seemed his usual self, sending them to fetch ice while he pulled the boat around to the gas pumps. As the deckhands walked off to get ice, they heard what sounded like a firecracker, Vincent said. They turned around but didn't see anything out of the ordinary, so they proceeded to gather the ice and wait for Kruse at the pumps. He never showed. After waiting a while, the deckhands returned to the boat, which was moored where they had left it, Vincent said. They went aboard and found Kruse at the captain's bridge above the wheelhouse, Vincent said. He had been shot in the head. A Glock handgun was later recovered from the scene, and investigators do not suspect foul play, Vincent said. Vincent said Kruse was in good health, did not suffer from any mental illness, and was not taking psychotropic medications. But he said it's not surprising the oil spill had weighed heavily on his mind, as it has many local fishermen no longer able to support themselves with deep-sea sport fishing trips for marlin and the like, Vincent said. So you got this guy showing up for work. And you know, I don't want to make too much of this. Maybe he really did commit suicide. Which it seems like he would have stayed home if he was going to do that. Why would he show up for work, apparently getting ready for the day, act like his normal self, like nothing's wrong, and then all of a sudden put a gun to his head and blow his brains out? Not on psychotropic drugs, no history of mental illness. It's a very odd story. And there's just so many odd things associated with this, what I could now call an operation, ladies and gentlemen. In the meantime, the San Francisco Chronicle reporting BP oil spill corrects at dispersants suspected in widespread crop damage. They say just when you thought the damages BP could cause was limited to beaches, marshes, oceans, people's livelihoods, birds, and marine life, there's more. BP favorite dispersant Corexit 9500 is being sprayed at the oil gusher on the ocean floor. Now, we've talked about Corexit and how toxic it is, so I'm going to skip down here. They say it seems like damage brought by the oil gusher has spread way beyond the ocean, coastal areas, and beaches. Collateral damage now appears to include agricultural damage way inland Mississippi. A mysterious disease has caused widespread damage to plants, from weeds to farmed organic and conventionally grown crops. There's a very strong suspicion that ocean winds have blown Corexit aerosol plumes or droplets, and that dispersants have caused the unexplained widespread damage or disease. There's no other explanation for the crop damage. Everything points to something that has a widespread effect on plants and crops. While no one precisely knows, all the signs point to BP's use of aerosolized Corexit, brought inland by the ocean winds or rain. So we have this going on, as we told you, that more than likely this was going to end up causing crop damage. We've told you about supposedly Russian scientists supposedly saying that the East Coast could be destroyed. You know, I'm trying to be a little more laid back about this story, ladies and gentlemen. As I talked to a listener a few weeks ago who called me after the show, and he was very doom and gloom about this whole thing, and you know, I don't want to overblow this as being a major catastrophe that's going to change life as we know it in America. But there seems to be an awful lot of alarmism out there, and there seems to be an awful lot of people that are building this up, and fear is a very useful tool as well for the elitists. So on the one hand, I do think it's a major disaster, and I think that it's being utilized to condition minds of the people for a specific predetermined solution. We know this is the pattern. We know this is what the plan is. Whether or not this was orchestrated, and I think it's pretty safe to say it was, we know this is going to be utilized in a major way for cap and trade, Law of the Sea Treaty, sustainable development of the oceans, all kinds of things. Wall Street Journal is reporting that seafood prices, or the impact of this situation, is going to be limited. Why? Because we import 83% of our seafood. Only 2% of domestic supplies come from the Gulf. That from the Wall Street Journal. Here we see from the Examiner, Florida Gulf Coast oil spill. Plans to evacuate Tampa Bay area are in place. Now we have the Federal Emergency Management Agency planning evacuations as things continue to grow worse, and they're talking about the Gulf states becoming uninhabitable. Keep in mind, under Agenda 21, they don't want you living on coasts. Coastal areas, there need to be buffer zones between human activity and the coastal areas. They say in this Examiner piece, as FEMA and other government agencies prepare for what is now being called the worst oil spill in disaster in history, plans to evacuate the Tampa Bay area are in place. The plans would be announced in the event of a controlled burn of surface oil in the Gulf of Mexico, or if wind or other conditions are expected to take toxic fumes through Tampa Bay. From WDSU, Channel 6, federal government halts sand berm dredging. This is another example of the government trying to interfere with certain things that apparently need to be done to protect the shoreline, contributing to the impact of the crisis. I'm almost up to break time, but they say the federal government has shut down the dredging that is being done to create protective sand berms in the Gulf of Mexico. The berms are meant to protect the Louisiana coastline from oil, but the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has concerns about where the dredging is being done. The department says one area where sand is being dredged is a sensitive section. It's a sensitive, we got to protect the biodiversity, listeners. We got to be careful not to disturb the marine life in the area, even as the Corexit and the oil is going to destroy the marine. This is the kind of nonsense, the insanity that we have going on right now. All right, let's take the break. We'll continue on the other side. This is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. We'll be back.